How many bad little habits are stealing energy from you or stealing from you? I think of habits as those unconscious parts of us that we're just doing things. We're just going through a routine. We're going through our normal cycles. And some of these things are really destructive. They're self-sabotaging. They're self-destructive, but we hardly even notice them. So today I'm going to give you a couple of examples. And I know that people feel like bad habits are really, really hard to change. And I think there are some. I think there's some that are really tough. And that's really, sometimes the soul retrieval will really help with that. Shamanic techniques will really help with that. But today I want to talk about little ways that you can make progress towards changing your habits. Like I call these self-care habits, bad habits that are preventing you from a proper degree of dignified self-care and self-love. So I'm going to go through 4 levels. We're going to talk about mental, emotional, physical, and kind of a spiritual a way of converting our bad habits into something positive that will contribute to our lives. There's ways to transform our habits because we can be really sneaky with them. They're sneaky with us. Why can't we be sneaky with them? So let's imagine, like on the mental level, how many times a day do you think of something bad towards yourself? I call it smack talk. How many times a day does your brain smack talk you and try to tell you you're not good enough, or you can't do that, or you're not worthy, or don't even bother trying, or sometimes they're really, really tricky. The way mine smack talks me is to distract me into sending out like a whole bunch of text messages, which then means later on when I'm not in the mood to handle text messages, I get all the responses back from the text message. It's like throwing hangers in the closet. How is that good for me? I need to stay focused and do what I'm supposed to do. So the way, one little thing you can do is, well, first of all, you have to notice that these things are happening. First of all, you have to notice that your brain is like smack talking you. So assuming that you can start to bring into conscious awareness some of these things, then you have a fighting chance of making them your allies and turning them onto your side. So with the smack talking brain, my recommendation, there's actually really, I have a long list of recommendations for this, but you have to start talking to yourself nice and pretty in order to get some of your energy back, because every time you talk to yourself bad like that, you're reinforcing that habit, physically reinforcing it in the structures of your brain. And so it's just getting more and more permanent the more and more often you indulge in that smack talk, the more you let it happen to you. So the one suggestion I have, first of all, say stop. Give it the hand. Stop. I'm not going there right now. And then think of an affirmation. It's good for advanced planning. Do some advanced planning about this. But when you know your typical tapes, my dad used to call them tapes that play around in your head all the time. If you know your typical ones that you say to yourself all the time, then have a plan. Next time that little smack talker, rears its ugly head to me, this is what I'm going to say. And make sure it's something quick and easy, like 2 or 3 words. So stop, and then I'm productive today. Stop, I am a visionary. Stop, I am eating low salt foods today. So something like that that's like really, really quick and easy. You can turn on a dime and then repeat it a bunch of times. So that's a really good way of shifting one of those bad mental habits. Okay, we've got emotional habits. Yeah. Somebody says something to you, and whenever anybody says something like that to you, you interpret it and take it to heart and blow it out of proportion and turn into somebody you don't want to be. Maybe you turn into depressive, or maybe you turn into Alice angst-ridden, or maybe you get really irritable and mean. and mean Molly. and so you turn into somebody you don't want to turn into. We can't always control our behavior in the moment. Like, this is the peacemaker's way, the light worker's way, to bring it, our response and our reaction more and more into present time. When we're really early on our path, we just react. We don't even have a chance to respond. So this tip that I'm going to give you now is really for debriefing yourself after the fact. What the hell happened? And so you sit down with yourself and map out the process of the trigger. Okay, I was feeling like this in my body. I was hungry, I was tired, whatever you were feeling, what state were you in? And then what was it that somebody said to you? And then evaluate, really give it a fair, did they really say something to you that by all rights you should have a pretty negative reaction to? I mean, that's what abusive people do. Most people aren't abusive, and most people are saying things to us, and then probably in their messy human way, but they're saying things to us that are really probably just fine, except that we have something in us that interprets it and blows it out of proportion. So do this a little analysis with yourself and figure out what the triggers are. And then have a conversation with that part of you that's triggered like that. This is a process I call being your witness self, being loving towards that part of you that had that reaction. Because that part of she or he didn't know any better. And chances are they have a reason for why they reacted that way. And that reason could be really beneficial for you to know. So have a dialogue with this part of you that just had this big blow up reaction and acted a way that you didn't want to act, and see what it has to say. See what it really needs. See what it needs from you. And then make a promise to give that, to give to that part of you, to love that part of you, to accept that part of you. It's really helpful for our personal healing and our growth. And it's also a lot lighter on our relationships. So that process gives you a whole lot of self-care and self-love brownie points right there. So let's talk about the physical level. How often do you run around keeping yourself physically uncomfortable? My mom actually she doesn't go to the bathroom when she needs to. And she's had to kind of retrain herself. Oh, I'm starting to get that sensation. I need to go and take care of it, because I think that eventually sometimes our sensations in our body don't give us the right message. If we've ignored a message for a long time, then our body stops giving us a useful message. So head that off at the pass, because that could turn into some really significant health issues, right? So pay attention to your body. Notice when your body's uncomfortable, because a lot of times, going back to the emotional topic, sometimes it's a physical discomfort that makes us a little more emotionally edgy. And maybe we're smack talking ourselves in our brain, and we have physical discomfort, and then some poor innocent bystander says something to us and we blow up, right? So it's important to pay attention to your physical discomforts and what are some really little teeny tiny ways that you can take steps towards easing your physical discomfort. I mean, do you need to pop a button, and give your belly a little more space to digest? Do you, how easy would that be? What are some other little, I like to change the lighting, for example, or put a fan on me because I live in a warm climate. And that makes me so much more instantly physically comfortable. So just pay attention to physical discomforts and what you're needing there. Listen to your body, listen to yourself. So the last one I want to talk about is spiritual. It's sort of spiritual, but what I want to talk about is that sense of disconnectedness that we sometimes put up with for a really long time. And disconnectedness is it's I think that it's kind of an epidemic in our society because we're always on our text message, so people talk about this all the time. I don't want to belabor the point, but I don't think being disconnected is really how humans are built, how we're wired. But most importantly, I think that we do ourselves a great service when we're connected to ourselves. So we talked about that, right? We talked about being aware of the mental smack talk. We talked about being aware of your emotional triggers. We talked about keeping your body comfortable and healthy. So these are all, we already have 3 ways of connecting with yourself a little bit more. I think sometimes it's a little bit scary to just sit and give ourselves a moment to reflect, to space out, to meditate. You know why? Because these are forms of intimacy. And we, as a society, aren't really very good at intimacy. And sometimes it feels really, really weird to just be still and be with yourself and hear what you have to say. And then there's the other form of disconnectedness, which is feeling somehow deep inside you, no matter how you're showing up in the outer world, somehow feeling isolated inside. And again, I think that we're probably in a societal total peak experience of just so much of this happening out there right now. So take a deep breath and acknowledge if you have that type of feeling, if you feel a little bit disconnected from the people around you. So going back to what are the little ways we can change habits that are healthier for ourselves, that reflect a better self-love, a better ability to care about ourselves. Think of a relationship that you kind of would like to go a little bit deeper with. Who is somebody in your life that you could take a little bit more of a risk with? Even if it's an animal or a pet, like that's totally fine. Or somebody online, maybe you have friends online. How can you show more of yourself to that person? How can you ask them a personal question from a place of being personal? What would it take for you to feel a little bit more authentic? And I don't want to like peel off, if you're a person that's very, very, very private, I'm asking you to do something extremely courageous. And I honor that. And if you're a very, very private person and you also suffer from this sense of disconnectedness and isolation, then take a little step and maybe just think about it for a while. I could do this, I could do this, I could do this, but without even doing it, and see what comes up for you. Take little teeny steps today, and maybe you can make an affirmation, hug your inner little child, put on something comfy to wear that's the right color that you enjoy wearing, and maybe light a candle and give yourself a candlelight dinner and have an intimate personal moment with yourself out of a moment of love and respect and appreciation for yourself. So thank you so much for spending some time with me today on how you can shift and change bad habits that are like stealing from you, stealing your life force energy, stealing away from your pride, your confidence, from your ability to really show up in the world. This is Octavia, shamanic mentor, and it's been a privilege to share this time with you.